Welcome, Jet fans, to a live stream of the Jets Life podcast. I'm your host, Anthony, and it's the day we've all been waiting for. Let's be honest, it's been a very long time since the season ended, but even far before that, when Aaron Rodgers went down Monday Night Football Week 1, this was the day that we've all been really waiting for. I know that there was reports and stuff, and he put acclamations out there. He'd be ready for later in the season, but all in all, the realistic expectation was that he'd be ready for Week 1, and we have finally made it after a long off season, a long season last year with, Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, et cetera, playing quarterback. Tonight is the night we finally get to see Aaron Rodgers with this offense and a retooled offense with a much improved offensive line, much improved skill position players. This is the day that we've been waiting for. Monday Night Football against the 49ers, two teams rated highly up there, maybe in the top 5, top 10 if you want to be conservative. From an overall talent standpoint, this is the game the NFL chose to broadcast and have be the premier event going into this first week of the season. And the Jets are on that slate, and I am super pumped for what's going to come in this game. I have high expectations for this team, as we all do. And, obviously, sky's the limit for what this team can be. And tonight's our first opportunity to really prove what we believe that this team can be. So I'm going to take some time here. Obviously, the start to the regular season. I'm going to go into some of the key matchups in this game. I'll give a prediction. But first and foremost, it is the start of a new season. And I have made some changes to our overall podcast, made some updates. And the biggest update that I'm proud to announce, a new logo going into this season. And I'm going to present it here. This is our new Jets Life podcast logo. Eventually, I'll start producing merchandise with this logo on there. Anybody in the comments, please feel free, leave a comment, give me your thoughts on the new logo. How would you like this presented on merchandise as we eventually do roll some of this stuff out? But super excited. This was a long time coming. The old logo is definitely something that I kind of put out there with expectations of changing it at some point, and that change has finally come. And here we are with the new logo. Again, share your thoughts on what you think about that. So again, huge week coming up, huge game coming up here in the next couple of hours. I believe the game is slated to start 8:15, so we're at 2 hours and 15 minutes away from kickoff, assuming there's no delays, as there was on the Thursday night game. Hoping that's not the case. We've already been waiting way long enough for this to happen. If it was up to me, I would have been playing this game on Sunday night or Sunday, somewhere at the 1 o'clock hour. But nonetheless, we get that premiere slot on Monday Night Football to get this thing started. So I'm going to go into some of these matchups in this game. What are we looking at as we go up against a very, very strong San Francisco 49ers team? What are some of the key matchups here? Obviously, you start getting into this whole situation here. And first and foremost, let's start off with defensive matchups. And of course, there's some cutoff here at the bottom. Can't get too far ahead here. Some cutoff at the bottom here. Not sure what happened with my slides, but to start off, obviously, Jets defensive line versus 49ers offensive line. Obviously, the Jets are without Hassan Reddick. The 49ers are with all of their entire offensive line, mainly Trent Williams, a player that we if you're in the news at all, you understand he was going through a little contract holdout for a little period of time. That contract has been resolved. He's playing, should be playing. My understanding, the 49ers will be fully locked and loaded. McCaffrey's set to go. There was some scare with his injury as well, and obviously Ayuk with his contract dispute as well. Everybody was signed. Everybody's ready to roll. So the Jets are getting the 49ers at full strength in this opening week matchup here. So really what we're looking here, Jets defensive line, who's going to be the person that steps up against this 49ers offensive line? It's a very strong unit. Obviously, knowing Trent Williams on the outside, who's going to be the person that takes that step forward? Obviously, all eyes on Will McDonald in this particular situation, player the Jets drafted in the first round last year in the NFL draft. Didn't get his uptick in playing time. The Jets were pretty heavy on the edge position, so gave him a little bit of luxury to kind of work him in at a slower pace. But unfortunately, that luxury has kind of gone away. They tried to extend that luxury with the trade for Hassan Reddick, but that's a holdout that's gone way too long. Don't want to talk about that anymore. Today's all about who's here, who's ready to roll. And this defensive end position is going to be a very interesting one. We got undrafted players in Eric Watts and Brandon McGregor, Michael Clemens coming off a little bit of a down year last year. Robert Saleh blames himself and the Jets coaching staff for the way that they expected for Clemens to kind of roll into the season. They wanted to gain a little bit more weight, but now he's lost a little bit of weight, a little faster, a little slimmer, kind of hopefully get that initial kind of person we saw in his rookie year. Wasn't a great player, but he showed flashes, showed power. And last year, I feel like that speed kind of went away, and I think that's a big key to what happened there. Obviously, you look at the Jets defensive line, you got to look at the guy in the middle, Quinnen Williams. He's a guy that single-handedly can take over a game. He's up there with the top defensive tackles. Chris Jones, he's up there with, right there with those type of players. Obviously, Chris Jones having the Super Bowl titles under his belt claims that top spot for this. But, Quinnen Williams is not too far off with what he can do to a game. And it's really up to everyone else on the defensive line to take advantage, because the 49ers are going to be keyed in on Quinnen Williams. They're going to make sure he is not the person that wrecks the game. We've seen it time and again that teams will do whatever they can to prevent Quinnen Williams from taking over a game, even if that requires double teaming and even triple teaming him at times. So really, when you get double teams, triple teams, that leaves one-on-one matchups on the outside. Jermaine Johnson, I'm expecting a big jump from him this year. He's going to be probably lined up on most occasions across from Trent Williams. Very tough matchup, but if it's a situation where you catch Trent Williams, is he a little rusty from missing so much time in training camp? Jermaine Johnson's the guy with the speed rush. They could be able to get around Trent Williams, but that's going to be a very tall task. Trent Williams is even as a rusty player, probably still a top 10 offensive tackle in this league. Moving down the line here, obviously, probably one of the more key matchups I would probably put in this whole game is how the Jets linebackers, Quincy Williams and C.J. Mosley, handle the tight end and running back position. Obviously, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. As I mentioned earlier, McCaffrey is going. He's ready to roll. Quincy Williams, with his speed, I really kind of view him as a player to kind of keep an eye on Christian McCaffrey at all times. 49ers love to use him in motion. They love to use him in the screen game, obviously. Quincy Williams and obviously C.J. Mosley will be involved in that too. But with Quincy Williams' speed, I think he's gonna be the guy that kind of roams a little bit to kind of keep everything in check with Christian McCaffrey. The biggest thing you have to watch out for here is in play action. How are these linebackers going to feed up into the play? Because the 49ers love to run play action, and they love to run play action on basically misdirection routes that kind of find George Kittle on the opposite side of the field. Those are the kind of plays that I feel like Kyle Shanahan loves to run in these types of games when you have a very strong defense on the opposite side of the field. How do you run misdirection? How do you manage all that chaos? The Jets are going to have their hands full here. Obviously, the safeties will have a play in this too. But I'm looking strictly at the linebackers. We have one of the top linebacking units in the league going up against one of the top running backs in the league, and also a very high-end tight end here. These two players alone can really cause fits for a defense. So I'm really hoping the Jets come in prepared for really anything. This is the first game of the year. There's always going to be unscouted looks, and the Jets linebackers are going to really have to key in on what they expect from the Kyle Shanahan offense. The last part here, which is cut off, again, apologize. This is what happens when you kind of format your slides a certain way. But what it's supposed to say here is the Jets cornerback trio of Sauce Gardner, Michael Carter, and DJ Reed. How do they fare against the elite receivers of Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk? As mentioned earlier, again, Ayuk missed some time in training camp due to a contract holdout. Could he have a little rust? Obviously, with a skill position player, they tend to want to lure them in, like roll them in at a much slower pace. than maybe you would with a defensive lineman. And DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner, and Michael Carter obviously have been here from day one of the open of training camp. Every player has on the Jets, that is. So very key matchup here. Obviously, again, when Ayuk's on the field, that's kind of the guy that's you got to kind of watch out for. Brock Purdy loves going to Ayuk on a short slant, quick routes, deep digs. This is the kind of role here. And then at the same time, you got to watch out for Deebo Samuel. He's the type of player that can really kind of cause chaos when you're focused on all these skill players. You got one-on-one coverage on Deebo Samuel. He's a hard player to take down. Jets are going to have a responsibility to make sure that there's many players around Deebo Samuel because he's a player that can just catch the ball, run over someone, and take the ball a distance. We've seen it so many times from Deebo Samuel. That's our key defensive matchups. Let's get to the offense side. This is the part that I've been waiting for so much. We never got an opportunity to see Aaron Rodgers with this offense, so we finally get that opportunity. And I mentioned earlier, the Jets come in with a revamped offensive line against this 49ers defensive line. First major test for this Jets offensive line. Obviously, the Jets went to the offseason, brought in Tyron Smith, John Simpson, bringing back Tippmann and AVT, and Morgan Moses on the right-hand side, going left to right, obviously, was what I was trying to do there. Going up against this 49ers defensive line is definitely the task that you're, really want to see what this offensive line can do for the first time against a strong unit. We're looking at, really on the 49ers defensive line, which side of the formation. It will switch from time to time throughout the entire game, but Nick Bosa is the guy you kind of want to watch out for at all points of the game. He's a player that can wreak havoc. We've seen him do it time and time again. But this is not the same old Jets on this offensive line. Last season, the Jets ran turnstiles out there on the offensive tackle spots. Here you have Tyron Smith, who's been in the league for years and years and years. Got Morgan Moses on the opposite side of the field. He was here previously. Never should have left. He was an awesome player at the time. Obviously, the Jets had to let him walk because that Dwayne Brown, I believe, was at the time on the contract. And obviously, Mekhi Becton was drafted that year. Gave him an opportunity to kind of get a starting job somewhere else because they felt he was not worthy of being a starter at the time. Obvious mistake by Joe Douglas, corrects that mistake. And this offensive line is best offensive line I feel like I've seen the Jets run out there in a very, very, very long time. If you want to go back to 2010, I'd even say further back behind that. This offensive line is probably the most exciting part of what this offense can be. I know it sounds tacky, sounds boring, but sometimes boring wins you games. And this offensive line is going to be a problem for many defensive lines to handle, especially when you get down to this next key matchup. The running game, Breece Hall. I didn't bring up all the running backs in this list, but Braylon Allen is going to have a key role in this game. And then similar to what I mentioned earlier with the linebackers running with the tight ends, there's going to be a lot of play action run in this offense as well. We are going to see two offenses that run very similar ideas. Obviously, LaFleur coming off different branches of that Kyle Shanahan tree under Sean McVay that was. So a lot of similar, we're going to see a lot of similar formations here, a lot of similar feats for what the Jets run here. But Breece Hall is going to be a problem this season. He's a player that, behind the terrible offensive line last season, still managed to rack up 1,500 all-purpose yards. And now he's got an offensive line that will actually block for him. Many occasions, Breece Hall was, hit behind the line of scrimmage and still managed to find yards. And that shouldn't be the case here. This is a strong offensive line, and Breece Hall, love to see what he can do. A year removed from his ACL injury, with a much improved offensive line. And again, going into the play action, Aaron Rodgers loves using his tight ends. Love to see what happens here in that play action game. How do they handle, a situation where potentially Breece Hall's, getting chunks at a time. Braylon Allen comes in, he's pounding the rock, whatever. Eventually that is going to have an impact on what the 49ers can do. Eventually that feeds into the play action game where you'll look for guys like Conklin down the seam. And then most importantly, player that I feel has been given the short end from a quarterback position play for the first couple of years of his career, Garrett Wilson, 2 years into the league, 2,000-yard seasons with terrible offensive quarterback play. It was, it's basically been him out there wide open at many points in the game and just not being seen, not being trusted to, for the quarterback to whip the ball to him. It's just been terrible play. He's getting his chance for the very first time with an elite quarterback, Hall of Fame quarterback, future Hall of Fame quarterback once he's retired and gets that time. Garrett Wilson, I'm looking at him to be that player this season that just takes that drastic leap, that huge year 3 leap. He's shown steady progress in his first couple of years, and we really haven't had the opportunity to see what he can be. This is his chance. This is his opportunity. This is what we've been waiting for. What is Garrett Wilson? We'll find out this season. And a big matchup here against Travarius Ward, player who's been very open in the media. Has basically been going after players on the Jets. He went after Sauce Gardner earlier in the offseason when Sauce Gardner gave an opinion on what he believed was going to happen in the Super Bowl. And then obviously recently out there with saying that he was going to intercept Aaron Rodgers and have Aaron Rodgers sign his ball. Well, this is a situation where Garrett Wilson to kind of shut his mouth and score a touchdown on him and have him sign his touchdown ball. All these matchups, all big players. I mean, you look at it both sides of the ball, offense, defensive line, skill position players. There are matchups every single place on this field. But I would say the biggest key to this game, and probably something we just don't keep our eyes on enough, is what can Aaron Rodgers do, especially against a defensive coordinator playing in his first defensive coordinator coaching and running defense for the very first time in his career. Probably not an ideal situation for a defense coordinator to be going up against one of the smartest quarterbacks that we've had in the league, definitely over the last 20 years. Aaron Rodgers definitely up there with many of the greats. How does Nick Sorensen run out here? I mean, obviously, you never know with a defense coordinator. The 49ers have struck gold on multiple occasions with Robert Saleh. Obviously, DeMeco Ryans, not so much last year, obviously letting Steve Wilkes out after the Super Bowl performance. But Nick Sorensen coming in his first season as defensive coordinator, 21 years of coaching experience, some at special teams, some at different levels of the defense. So he's well-rounded. I am not expecting this to be a situation where he comes in just lost and obliterated, but it's definitely worth noting, especially when you get down to those 2-minute situations late in the game, when Aaron Rodgers has seen everything. What does Nick Sorensen throw at him that Aaron Rodgers may have not seen? And what does Aaron Rodgers throw at him that maybe he's not prepared for? A lot of key matchups. Looking forward to this game, obviously. This is, again, what we've all been waiting for, is to see Aaron Rodgers playing quarterback for the New York Jets, rocking that number 8 jersey. We were screwed last year out of that opportunity, but finally, a year later, 364 days, we're getting that chance. If you haven't already, please take your time, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel. It helps me grow, and I appreciate all the support. Ladies and gentlemen, we're finally here. Thank you for listening, and let's go Jets.